Welcome, everybody, at this Business Agility Boost. I'm calling in from the Netherlands, so I say good afternoon, but maybe you are watching from a different place in the world. So let us know where you come from in the chats. And I see already some people there. Hi, Arun. Good morning from London, I see. And Ingrid, good morning from the Netherlands, I suppose. And yes, the event started just yet. We had some technical problems. Sorry for that. So we have a bit of a delay. But happy you are here. Also, Björn, welcome this morning. Hi. So this is our second live in the Change Accelerator series. And during our last session, we dived into the bigger picture with Priscilla Dunant, transformation leader of Philips. Today, we will dive into how to lay the foundation for change and what is our climate for change. And as you are my guest today, I'd like to invite you to share your experiences, your struggles, your questions. Let's make this life as valuable as possible for you. For the ones who are joining and do not know me, I am Alisa Hofmeester, founder of Twingster, and it's my purpose to create spaces where everyone is able to thrive. Human-centric, purpose-driven, value-based. Next to our consultancy and to our academy, LinkedIn Live is a great space to share our knowledge, to learn together, to share experiences, and to shape the future. So today, we're diving into climate for change. And let's share the presentation I created. So after this session, I said we lay the foundation, how to lead, how to commit, how to engage, and to shape a stunning experience. Now, why is that important? Well, what we see is that change is impacting our lives and our business with an increasing speed. People ask for purpose and for meaning. And we have a lot of questions on which we do not have the answers anymore. So organizations are changing and transforming. But what we also see is that we face some challenges along the way. The latest research of the Business Agility Institute shows us that the first challenge we face is resistance to change. Leadership change capabilities. Another challenge is difficulty scaling. We still work in silos. And commitment. And there are more challenges, but these challenges are faced by companies who start the transformation, but also who are already on their way. And we all know the numbers, and that's not a consultancy number, but we all know the numbers that it's said that 70% of transformations or change initiatives fail. And that has to do with these kind of challenges. But it also has to do with taking the patience to be able to transform, to take the time to transform. So today we dive into the first part. Well, how can we now set a climate for change, for transformation? Now you hear me say change and transformation. And sometimes we mix those two. So what is the difference between change and transformation? Is there a difference? And yes, there is a difference. When we speak about change, that's mostly about fixing the past. It can be, but it doesn't have to be only part of one department. It's mostly focused on on tools, methods, and processes. Mostly they are fixed initiatives and on tactical level. Whereas transformation is about creating the future, so the opposite of fixing the past. It impacts the entire human system. It reshapes beliefs and mindsets. And it can be the outcome of many changes. So what we see on my left side, and maybe it's then your right side. I don't know. It's mirrored, I think. So what we see is that transformation, a huge transformation, can be built up by several smaller change initiatives. And a transformation is more on strategic level. Now, what we often see is that we start a change from the current state. And we want to go to a next state, the B. Often, these changes, what I already said, the difference between change and transformation, is related to systems. We focus on our processes. We focus, for instance, on our job descriptions, on our workplace, mostly everything we can see. So, for instance, it is a couple of years ago. I just started as a manager in a new organization, and it was a sunny morning, and I went to the headquarters. It was my first day, and I found myself in the midst of a reorganization. That morning, I had a conversation with a consultant who was supporting us in this restructuring. And as my department was part of the change, he briefed me on the situation. And when I went into his office, I saw a drawing on his desk. And of course, I was very curious. And I looked at the drawing and I asked, "What's this?" Well, this, Elise, is the new organization. In this new structure, we move from a decentralized model to a centralized one. And we are consolidating all departments into one location. I looked at him and asked, "And why is this a good idea?" "Well, it's good to shake up your structure every 3 years or so and keep everyone on their toes." I nearly fell off my chair. Of course, he saw my response and he said, "It's just a change in structure. We are not firing people. They can continue working here in the headquarters. And some of them will also retire soon. And we have lower location costs," and so on and so on. All kinds of reasons to do the change. But what missed was why we were doing this. What were we aiming for to achieve? And what would it mean for our customers? That was not on the table. Well, have you ever had such a similar experience? Then, well, if you have, then share in the chat. And if you have questions about it, then also please share. But I was flabbergasted in this moment. And what you see here is that this approach was really based on this upper level. What he told me was, yes, it's just a change in the structure. But what we then often forget is that it's not just a change in the structure, but in this structure, we are working together with people. So you can say this restructuring is not really an impact on their job or their role, but what about moving from one location to another location? Are the teams still the same, etc.? So people will have a lot of questions. So it's not only a change, it's really a transformation for people. Now, what we also see today is that maybe when we talk about restructuring, that was really a situation from A to B. So next to restructuring, for instance, you can think of changing a system. That's also a fixed term. So you start one system and you replace it for another one. But all these parts, all these smaller things are related to the upper level. But people, if we need to start in this new system, and with this new system, then it can be that we also need to train and to be trained and to learn new things. So this is why it's not only an A to B, and what we often see is that the B is no longer there because changes evolve and evolve, and that we need to think about the people journey. And if we speak about the people journey, then we know where we go to, or we know where we are today. And the road can be clear from today. But along the way, we can face all kinds of obstacles. And that obstacle is something you do not see today. And therefore, we need to think about, at the beginning, what can help us to be prepared. So, for instance, think of that you are going on a holiday. You do not just pack stuff in your suitcase, but you really prepare. So, if I'm going for a sabbatical for 3 months, I need to take different stuff in my suitcase than when I'm just moving for 1 week. When I go to the beach, I take different stuff than I go for hiking, and so on and so on. And that's also the case when we are starting a change or starting a transformation. Now, that moment in time when I sat with the consultant, and when I was part of that first transformation, that sparked in me the passion for change. And I started to learn, and I started to fill my suitcase with all kinds of different models, methodologies. I started to do a study on strategic change management. And well, one of the models is, of course, the Kotto model. It's very well known. 8 steps to change, about creating urgency, form a powerful coalition, create a vision for change, communicate the vision, empower action, so involve all your people, create quick wins, build on the change and make it stick. Next to this model, I also dived into the EDGAR methodology. I dived into the Lelou culture model. I got to know more about the 7S model of McKinsey. And then all of a sudden, I dived also into all kinds of behavioral models, like the Fogg behavioral model, the elephant and the rider of Haidt, and the change curve. And of course, later on, it evolved towards agility, while being part and experimenting and experiencing the journey towards agile, towards lean. Started to work with visual management, like the Obeya, for instance, but also really working with my boots on the ground. And based on that, I created the People Journey Circle. And the People Journey Circle is a methodology that helps organizations, leaders, and employees to craft their unique journey. And what you see is in the midst the people and purpose, because for me, people and purpose is really the foundation of your organization. Without people, your organization doesn't exist. And that's not only the people in your organization, but of course also your stakeholders and your customers. Then a part of the People Journey Circle is about communication and awareness. How do we communicate? How do we create awareness around what we are aiming for? Identifying constraints is also a topic part of the People Journey Circle. So if you find those obstacles on the road, what do you do with them? Do you put a plaster on the wound, or do you dive into the root cause? And how do you visualize the entire journey so that you are able to start creating an iterative one? Role modeling, of course, the part of, maybe it's also one of the most important parts. How do we lead, and what does leadership mean in our organization? Community building. So how do we learn from each other? Creating a learning organization, how are we able to deal with all those changes and our feelings and resistance to change? And what you also see uh, um, around the People Journey Circle is the ecosystem. So what is the impact of what we are doing to the ecosystem and vice versa? Now, maybe you also hear a bit already about all the models I mentioned before. These are also part of the People Journey Circle. So I embedded them into this methodology. And this methodology is also not fixed, because what we see is that we cannot lay the entire road. Yes, you can craft, of course, your future aspirations, and you can start crafting the journey. But along the way, as I already said, we need to be able to adjust based on things that are evolving internally, obstacles we find, but maybe also things we face from outside. Well, the most, I think, the one of the biggest impacts was COVID a few years back, and if something pops up from our ecosystem which impacts our system, then we need to be able to adjust. So in here you see a more iterative approach where I say we first always need to start with exploring. When you just start somewhere and think of, for instance, Agile. There are a lot of organizations who start with Agile, want to change towards self-organization and so on. We start somewhere, maybe you have seen it in another organization and you think, oh, wow, that's great what they are doing. We also want to do this because maybe it helps us in our way forward. And we start to implement mostly, again, I think about the upper part of the people journey. We start to implement maybe a new structure, a new frame, the new system. But do we always really understand what it means for our organization? Because behind Agile, there is a philosophy. There are values, there are principles. And how do these principles relate to the principles we aspire to in our organization? When I started with an organization, also in an Agile transformation, they also said, yeah, but we are already working for 2 years now with sessions with people in the organization. We started already to think about Agile. We speak a lot about Agile. And then I said, okay, but do you really understand what Agile means? Have you gone through all the principles and how that influences your way of working? Because it's really impactful. And you need to really stand behind and be committed to drive such a change and such a transformation. So what we did is that we really went back to the beginning and we started to explore what it really means. We had the conversations about each and every principle and each and every value. Now, this company already had a very strong purpose and they had very strong values and also on global level, a shared mindset with the values and principles described. So there we also said, well, maybe it's a good idea to have a look at how these principles of your organization align with the principles of Agile. And they fit it very well, but sometimes you see it also the other way around. So I think this is very important to really start understanding what it is, and not only with the leadership team, but with all the people in the organization. So start organizing sessions together with the people in your organization so that they also understand what it means before you really start to implement it in in the entire organization. So In this exploration session, define the purpose of the change. So after you really explored what this is, what it means, what the principles are, what the principles are of your organization, what is then the purpose of your change? What is also important is form a strong guiding coalition and involve everyone on the journey. Now, what do I mean with that? What do I mean with that? In another transformation, or it was not yet a transformation, I had a conversation with a leadership team, and they said, our organization is already on the way to a new strategy, and that means a real transformation in our way of working and in how we collaborate. And this leadership team was part of the HR department, and they said it would be very strong if we could be a step ahead and be the guiding department for the entire organization. And of course, that is very strong. But they were already a bit ahead of the curve and said, "Oh, we already crafted our new operating model, and we think that it really aligns with the rest of the organization and that we should start from there." Well, during one of the strategy sessions where we discussed this, we really dived into, but why would this then help your department to guide the people and all employees, all leaders in the business? And that answer was not very clear. So that moment, after that strategy session, they decided we first need to work on our own transformation. So what are we as a HR leadership team? And who do we want to be? Why are we here on earth to help the rest of the organization? If we want to support all employees in the organization, what do we need to learn? And maybe, also very important, what do we need to let go? So they started, for instance, to craft their team purpose. And they started with, for instance, writing a LinkedIn post. A LinkedIn post which they would post in 3 years from today. A post where they said, "This is why I'm proud of my team. This is why I'm proud of my department and of our organization. And this is why we are proud. What we have done for the entire organization to make an impact, and how we involved everyone on the journey." So they changed their entire approach based on the sessions we had and based on our methodology we use in our organization. They became a strong team. They became the orchestrators of the change. They set up a multidisciplinary transformation team. So next to that they are a leadership team, they asked people in the organization to help them, to guide the transformation. Not to delegate the transformation to that team, but to be the orchestrators of change, because the leadership team realized that they also needed to learn. And that they maybe are also sometimes stuck in old behaviors. So they needed the help from a team who could be objective and who really, and they really committed to that and said, "Okay, help us, give us feedback. And when we fall back, then help us to step up again as leaders." Why is it multidisciplinary? Because it's very important to involve people from all parts of the organization so that you know what is going on and so that you have the direct connections in the organization. This way, you also step out of your silos and the siloed approach. If you only craft or set up a multidisciplinary or a team within HR, for instance, then you only have the perspectives from the people inside HR. When you involve people from business, from IT, and so on, and maybe also later on customers, then you have the perspectives from different levels, from people who are really out at the front and working with your customers. And of course, a strong team that is committed to the shared purpose, not only to the team purpose, but also to the purpose of the transformation, to the purpose of your department, to the purpose of your organization, so that you really know, why are we doing this? Now, I already mentioned a bit about the Twinks to four-step approach. And what is that approach? Is that we first start to imagine the future. But imagining that future is not enough. You have your purpose, you have your values, your principles, and the related behavior. Then you also start to create your story. The story from you as a team, the story from you as an organization. And you want to validate this story. So you involve the people in your organization in this story and in this future and say, okay, what do you think about this? And after that, you define the purpose together. Now, it's a good thing to have your purpose and your future, but you start today. And today is the part of, well, where it needs to happen. So the people in your organization have the experience and the learnings of the past, but how do we bring that to the future? What do we then need to change? So you have to understand your current situation and what is already strong today. What you sometimes hear in organizations is that employees say, so then everything we did before is not good enough or doesn't have any meaning anymore. That's not the case. You always have strong things. So how can you leverage on these? And how can these stronger parts, what is very good, how can you bring that to the future and make them even better? And how can you make the things that are not going so well better based on these things that are strong already? And what you can simply do is do a SWOT analysis. And again, what you already hear in everything I say, involve the people in your organization, because what you think as a leadership team or what you think as a transformation team is strong or not. Maybe the employees experience something totally different. Now, another thing, what is also very important when you start in your transformation is creating interactive communication. It's one of the first values also from Agile, people and interactions. Be clear, communicate, communicate, communicate. So if you have that aspired future, that purpose, those values, those principles, explain over and over again why you are doing this. Only explaining it once is not enough. We all know that game that you share one sentence with your colleague and he shares that sentence with someone else. And so you continue to 10 different people. At the end of the row, the sentence is transformed. It's not the same as what you were aiming to say, what your communication is. So be clear on the communication. Be credible, show and act. That also means that if you share a story where you are aiming, for instance, for transparency, but you know that you were not always transparent yourself, what do you think people in the organization, how will they see you? And do they then really believe your story? So what is very powerful is that if you start to share the purpose of your team or of your company with those behaviors, with those principles and values, then also think of, hey, and what is my story? What do I have when I stand on stage? What do I have to change? It's not about that the people in your organization need to change. No, everyone, also leaders, need to change. So if you share that story, then share also your personal story and what you are looking for and what you need to learn, and that you sometimes also do not show the behavior, but you are in it altogether. Be empathetic, listen and support. Sometimes we listen, but do we really listen to receive the information and to start thinking and helping, supporting the other who you are listening to? Now, why is that important? Well, at the beginning, I shared the story about the restructuring. And the leader who was standing on stage explaining that story, he said, okay, but this is just a restructure, and we are going from a decentralized organization to a centralized organization. And then all of a sudden, when he was explaining that, one of the employees stood up very firmly and he said, this is very easy for you, right? Because you are already working in this headquarter. But when I think of this change and this restructuring, I now understand that I need to travel 3 hours a day to my new workplace. Have you thought about what that means for me? In that session, you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was silent, and then the chaos started. So be prepared if you share a story that you have to embrace the discomfort. Don't think, we figure it out. No. Dive into it. What is the discomfort? Because how we respond is still the same as what our ancestors did when they faced a lion on the road. So we fight, like this employee did. He stands up, or we fly and think, emotionally checking out. Let's see how it will work. I don't know yet. Or we freeze, not knowing how to respond. But in these responses, there's a lot of value. To understand how we can move on together again, you need to sit down with the employees. And there is more to this, because it's not only the change that is announced. We do not have an empty backpack. We have experiences from years and years. Sometimes they are good, sometimes they are bad. Sometimes we feel ashamed or humiliated. Sometimes we are interrupted. Sometimes we get those emotions when we feel disrespected, when we feel unheard and unseen, or when we are overly controlled. And this, in combination with a change announcement and already an overloaded bucket, can cause an emotional explosion. So in one of the transformations, and later on, we started to do this more and more often, we started with organizing transition sessions. As leaders of change, as transformation leaders, as employees or managers of your department, it's very crucial that you know how this works. What is going on in the minds of people? Because we really do not know. And what was very helpful for me is that to learn how the change curve works. And in this change curve, I'm not sure if you can see it very well, and if not, then please put it in the chat, we can share it with you. But what you see in here are the emotional stages we go through when change is announced. And now it seems that there is only one curve when we go deep and then move up again, and that's it. But that is not the case. Because over and over again, we can fall back, we can have a similar situation again, that something is changing, or that we thought, wow, I thought this was a good idea, but it doesn't turn out this way. So think, for instance, if you have a hiring process in your change or transformation, then first there are some people who say, okay, I'm going to start with the hiring process. So after the first announcement and after the first responses, then they start to prepare for the application process and dive into the hiring process. They have the interviews, etc. So there you see that people really fast go through the curve and whoa, up again. And I want to be part of this new organization. But then the feedback comes. And for people who will get the job and get the job they applied for, they might be happy. But the people who applied for a job but do get another one or do not get any job, they really fall back into the first emotions. And it can also really be that they fall into a depression. And even the people who get the job, after starting in it, it can be that it is disappointing and then they fall back again. So this change curve is crucial to understand. And it's crucial to have the conversations in your leadership team. So how do you deal with this? How can you help people through this change? And maybe also as leaders, you have to understand where you are in the curve. So what is very helpful is that you really have the conversations together with your team. Where am I? How do I feel? Do I have certain situations that I can see, oh yeah, this is part, here am I part in this part of the curve? And also do this with the employees in the organization over and over again. I see a remark from Björn that the change curve is a bit blurred and hard to read. Could you share it with us in the chat? Yes, I can. I will do that later on. I think that's better to do. So yes, we can. Thank you for mentioning that. And if you need something else, then also please mention. Now, I shared certain topics with you, and you need to understand that transformation is a journey. So it's an ongoing process. Today, I shared how to lay the foundation, how to set a climate for change. That is the beginning of the journey. And now it seems, how I draw this journey, that it's really coming to an end at the top. But there we will continue talking about in the next session, which we have in 2 weeks, where we talk about sustaining the transformation. Here, today, we have talked about how to lay the foundation, what is important to create a climate for change. So remember, start strong, define your purpose together, also with your team, and involve the people in your organization. Build a guiding coalition that really is committed to orchestrate the change, that also has the resources, the budget, and the time to be able to guide the transformation. Credible leadership. Think of the storytelling. What is your story? And if you ask something from others, how do I show that myself? Involve all people. I cannot say it enough. Start involving. We need all the people in the room, in the organization. Together we know more, and together we can find different solutions on our questions, sorry. And start from today. So yes, if you have your purpose, start from today, where you are today. Take with you what is strong, and what is not that strong, improve. Thank you for being here. And I hope to see you next time in 2 weeks, where we dive further into this about how can we sustain the transformation, how can we sustain the change. And if you have questions or questions are popping up along the way, then please reach out, connect, and I will do my best to answer. Thank you for being here. Thank you, and have a great day today. Bye-bye.